I just want to make 3 points connected to the issue of caste census. As you know, I have been writing, like many other colleagues, I have been writing on the issue of caste census. I have been writing why caste census is important and necessary. I have been offering justification and what I have also written on what caste census has revealed in Bihar when caste census data came from Bihar. I have written about what that data shows and why the Bihar caste census data is already a good example. It's a good evidence why we need similar data from all over the country. So I will not repeat all this. I will simply focus on 3 things that we need to correct. By we, I mean all those who are for social justice, all those who speak in favor of caste census, all those who have been justifying, and all those who are for affirmative action policies, reservation and other affirmative policies. On the issue of caste census, I think there are 3 corrections that we need to make. When I read the literature on caste census, when I read articles, when I listen to speeches, I think there are 3 corrections, 3 fine-tuning amendments that we need to make. One is about what is caste census. Second is about why caste census is necessary. Third is about what caste census would lead to, what should be our final demand based on caste census. On all these 3, I find many friends taking a position, saying something, where in all of those 3, I feel that we need some little fine-tuning correction. Number 1, what is caste census? There is a very widespread misunderstanding that caste census is only about counting the number of the population of each caste. Now, while that is true, that is not the real thing of caste census. I think we all need to go out and be very careful, pertinent, persistent on this. We should always say caste census is about social, educational, and economic profile of each caste and community. This is important. We somehow don't make this point. And everyone, because people are so prejudiced, they say, oh, what do you get by counting? That is only for purposes of election. You want to get vote. Everyone knows it. So people give both arguments at the same time. Oh, this should not be found out. Oh, everyone knows it. These are the kind of things people say. We should argue, and the important thing, therefore, is to say, explain to people that census is not only a head count. In census, we can explain it with the help of exact schedules of the census, that in census, people are asked a number of questions about their household assets, that there are questions related to individual, questions related to household. Questions related to household include household assets, electricity, water, type of house, type of assets, things like computer, things like four-wheeler, two-wheeler, all these things are asked. So, and individual questions include educational status of each of the individual. So when we get caste census has the advantage of revealing us educational, social, and economic profile. Of course, in economy, we also ask for each individual their occupational status. We should remember that what the census does not ask. Census does not ask about land, land holding. Census also does not ask about government employment and nature of employment. Unfortunately, these are the limitations of census. But everything else census asks for, and therefore we should highlight the fact that caste census is important because caste census will give us, for the first time, a detailed social, educational, and economic profile of each jati, not only caste group, not only OBC, SC, ST, upper caste, but specific details about each jati which has never been available outside the SC. It would make this data available to us not only at the all India level, but at the level of state, also at the level of district, also at the level of block, and also at the level of village. People don't understand it normally. So please, whenever we speak about caste census, we must make this point that it gives us disaggregate analysis of each jati, disaggregated by the lowest census unit, namely village or a ward, for education, social profile, economic profile. That's the first correction that I want to make. Second, when we say caste census is needed, why is it needed? We often say we need to know the backwardness of the backward. How backward are the, that backwardness still persists. This is a point we often make, and it's a very valid point, because as the Bihar data has shown, that the extent of educational, occupational, and social backwardness of the OBC is huge. But there are 2 points that we often do not make. Number one, I think it's very important to underline that caste census will, for the first time, work to the advantage of the lowest OBC. It is my conviction that while the upper segment of the OBC, the land holding OBCs, have managed to get some share, but it is the lowest segment of OBC, the service class, the artisanal OBC, the landless OBC, they have had very little advantage of any affirmative action. So we should underline the fact that caste census will bring to light the number of lower OBC. Like in Bihar, we have discovered 36% are the Maha OBCs or the EBCs, as they're called, extremely backward community. We should also explain, and most people do not understand that, because BJP very often launches a propaganda, oh, you are trying to divide the Hindus, what about Muslims? It is important to explain that that caste census applies to Muslims, to Sikhs, to Christians, to everyone. And that indeed in the recent Bihar census, one of the biggest advantage of Bihar caste census is that for the first time we know something about the Pasmanda Muslims, the Muslim communities, which have been educationally very, very backward. So that's we should clarify this. The other point we should explain about the advantage of caste census. This is something I've learned from Professor Satish Deshpande, so it should be acknowledged, and that point should be made, which is that it is not only important to know about backwardness of the backward, of the disadvantage, it is also important to know privileges of the privileged, because that is the real thing. In the Brahminic social order, in every society, people, the ruling class wants to maintain secrecy, a veil of secrecy around its own privileges, because they are normal. Everyone else is abnormal. And it is critical to therefore expose the privileges of the privileged. Because when we say backwardness, how do you measure backwardness? We measure backwardness only once we know what is the educational, social, and economic status of the so-called upper caste. Bihar survey has revealed. I'll just give you one example. The Bihar survey shows that educationally, the most advantaged community is not the Brahmins, they are the Kayastha. So if you look at the people who enjoy very high degrees, the number among the Kayasthas is 10.8%, 10.08%. If you see the same proportion in a community called Musahar, which, as you know, is the lowest among Dalits, Mahadalit community in Bihar, their percentage is 0.001. 0.001, which is to say, out of 10,000 kayasthas, people who hold high degree in Bihar are 1,080. And among Musahars, out of 10,000, the number is only 1. So this we can find out only if we know the privileges of the privileged. So one of the principal justifications of caste census is to bring out, is to expose the nature of privileges. Because as long as there is a curtain on privileges, there is a veil of ignorance about privileges, we would never be able to, do much social justice. So this is a fine-tuning that we need to do in respect of our justification for caste census. The third question is about, so what do you want out of caste census? What will happen? And very often we say, and they are saying, okay, you would want increase in reservation, isn't it? Isn't that the basic reason? I think we should again point out several things. Number one, that caste, because the real propaganda against caste census is that the only reason for caste census is to increase the proportion of reservation. And that's why they are asking for caste census. That is indeed the case in many states. But I think we should emphasize very simple things. We should emphasize the fact, for example, that Supreme Court in the Indira Sahni judgment had said that there should be constant updating of the list of the OBCs to find out which OBC communities have deserve reservations, which one don't. How do you find that out? Only by caste census. There is no other way. So caste census is very useful for that purpose also. Caste census is useful to decide whether there should be a subclassification of castes, OBC, because at the state level, there is a division between OBC and EBC, but at the national level, there is none. That is to be considered. There is a debate about it. How do you settle that debate? By going for caste census. And finally, I think many of us say that all jobs, etc., should be in proportion to by caste census, we would get to know the exact population of each caste. So all the resources should be distributed accordingly. I understand the spirit of that. And yes, the huge disproportionality that prevails must be addressed. In every social, every position of prestige in this country, those who are 20% of the population of this country normally occupy 70-80% of those positions. And those who are 80% of the population of this country normally occupy 10, 15, 20, 25% of those positions. So this kind of disproportionality in key positions must be addressed. However, our demand should not be that in each case we require that there should be a strict proportionality. Like some people say, every caste should get its own share of government jobs, etc. That, to my mind, is not a correct demand. We should be careful about it. Because once you say, okay, OBC get exactly in proportion, then they would say within OBC, there should be OBC and EBC. Then within EBC, they would say different jatis should get. This is an infinite process. So we should think of better ways of expressing this demand. It should be that gross inequalities must be eliminated. Number two, that systems should be put in place where inequality of opportunity should be eliminated and addressed. Caste census will tell us wherever there is gross inequality, then we institute measures for elimination of that inequality. And in that process, we should also talk about the private sector, because private sector is where much of the jobs are. But once again, we should not simply jump to the demand that there should be reservation in private sector. This is a standard trick used by the ruling class to make the demand for caste census look bad. There are several studies that have taken place. Several recommendations have been made. There are smart ways of addressing the issue of private sector. It need not only be a reservation. Many other things can be done. For example, the first thing that you can do is to make it mandatory for every private firm to reveal the social profile of its employees. This is already done in the US. They have to declare the racial profile of their employees. And number two, once they reveal it, then you can say only those companies which meet a certain standard of diversity, of representing the SC, ST, OBC communities, only those companies will be given government contract. No need to give reservation. Just insist on this. That would make a difference. So all kinds of mechanisms can be thought of. We should keep thinking about it. So the overall point that I really wanted to make is that our caste census arguments can be more refined. We should present more refined arguments about what caste census is, what is it that we gain from that, and what is the demand that follows from it. The issue of caste census has now become a major issue in the country because Congress party also has taken it up and is determined to push it even after the assembly elections. And as we see more discussion in the public domain on caste census, I expect a lot of discussion around the Lok Sabha elections. At that point, many of us can make intervention and take this debate forward. That was my little plea. Thank you. I don't have a proper paper or anything, but thanks for this opportunity to allow me to make a small contribution to this seminar. Thank you very much.